My father-in-law declared, "I will be attending every doctor's appointment to approve medical decisions." When I protested, he pulled out a power of attorney form with my spouse's signature already on it. Furious, I made a call. The next time he showed up at the doctor's office, he was greeted by security instead. My father-in-law, Harold, has always been controlling. Not just your typical overbearing parent. No, Harold is the kind of man who believes he should be in charge of everything. He treats his opinions like law, and if you don't agree, too bad. My husband, Michael, grew up under his thumb. Even as an adult, Harold found ways to insert himself into our lives, pushing decisions onto Michael, making him feel like he couldn't function without his father's guidance. It took years for Michael to start pushing back, and just when I thought we were making progress, Harold pulled his worst stunt yet. A few months ago, Michael wasn't feeling great. He was tired all the time, had no energy, and just seemed off. He brushed it off at first, but after some concerning test results, his doctor ordered more appointments. We were stressed, obviously. The uncertainty, the waiting, it was a lot. Michael was leaning on me for support, which was completely normal. What wasn't normal was Harold deciding he needed to be involved. At first, it was just annoying. He'd call and demand updates. He'd tell Michael which tests he should get and which doctors he shouldn't trust. He even tried to convince us that some holistic nonsense would be better than actual medicine. Then he showed up at one of Michael's appointments. I walked into the waiting room, expecting a quiet moment before we went in. Instead, I saw Harold sitting there like he belonged. "I'm here to make sure things are done right," he said. I was caught off guard. "Michael and I have this handled," I told him. He just shook his head, like I was some clueless idiot who didn't understand what was happening. "Oh no, dear. I will be overseeing his medical decisions. You don't have the authority." "Excuse me?" I was pissed, but I didn't want to make a scene. I pulled Michael aside and asked if he had invited his father. Michael looked embarrassed. "No, he just showed up. I didn't think he'd actually do this." That should have been the end of it. Michael needed to tell his father to back off, and that should have been that. But Harold didn't leave. He followed us inside. When the nurse asked Michael about his symptoms, Harold answered for him. When the doctor asked about his medical history, Harold jumped in before Michael could speak. I kept turning to Michael, waiting for him to tell his father to stop. He didn't. He just sat there, letting his father control the conversation like he had his whole life. That's when I realized Harold wasn't just trying to help. He truly believed this was his decision to make. And I wasn't having it. After the appointment, I confronted Harold. "You don't get to make Michael's medical decisions," I said. "You're not his guardian. He's a grown man. Back off." Harold smiled. That smug, condescending smile that made my blood boil. "Oh, but I do." Then he pulled out a document and held it up like a winning lottery ticket. A power of attorney form, with Michael's signature on it. I felt my stomach drop. "This gives me the right to oversee all medical decisions," Harold said. "I'll be attending every appointment from now on. Any decisions will go through me." I couldn't breathe. This had to be fake. I snatched the paper out of his hands. My hands were shaking as I read it. Michael's name. His signature. It looked real. I turned to my husband. "Michael, did you sign this?" Michael took the paper, scanned it, and his face went pale. "I never signed this." Harold's smug expression faltered for just a second. "This is your signature," he said, like that proved anything. Michael shook his head. "I don't remember signing this. I wouldn't have given you this kind of control." Harold laughed. "You must have forgotten. We talked about it. You agreed." Michael's hands clenched into fists. "No, I didn't." Harold shrugged. "Well, it's done now." I could feel the rage boiling inside me. No, it was not done. I took the document home and examined every inch of it. The more I looked, the more suspicious it seemed. Michael's signature was just a little off. The way he wrote his name was usually more fluid, but this looked copied, stiff, forced. I took a picture of the document and sent it to my lawyer. Then I made another call to the hospital's legal department. I explained the situation, sent them the document, and asked what we could do. They took this kind of thing very seriously. If Harold had faked a power of attorney, he could be in serious trouble. The hospital's response? "We'll take care of it." I didn't know exactly what that meant at the time, but I found out soon enough. The next time Harold showed up to an appointment, he wasn't allowed inside. I watched from the waiting room as he strolled in, acting like he owned the place. 2 security guards stepped in front of him before he even reached the reception desk. "Sir, you are not authorized to be here," one of them said. Harold's smile disappeared. "Excuse me? You do not have legal authority over the patient's medical decisions," the other guard said. "You need to leave." I watched Harold's face go red. "You don't understand," he snapped. "I have power of attorney. The guard pulled out a folder and flipped through some papers. Not anymore, he said. Harold's mouth fell open. I stood up, arms crossed, watching the reality settle in. I didn't need to say a word. Michael finally stepped up beside me. For the first time, he looked his father in the eye and didn't back down. Leave, Dad, he said. Harold turned to him, rage burning behind his eyes. You're making a mistake. Michael didn't even blink. No, you did. Harold opened his mouth to argue, but the security guards moved closer. He clenched his jaw. His hands curled into fists. Then, finally, he turned and walked out. Harold should have learned his lesson. He should have walked away. But people like him? They don't just give up. At first, things were quiet. Too quiet. Michael and I almost let our guard down. Harold stopped showing up uninvited. He wasn't calling or texting nonstop. It felt like we had finally won. Then the bills started coming. One afternoon, I opened a bill from a specialist Michael had never seen before. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But then I saw the name listed as the referring party. Harold. I checked the date. This appointment was scheduled after he had been banned from the doctor's office. I grabbed my phone and called Michael. Did you book an appointment with this doctor? Michael frowned. No. Why? I sent him a picture of the bill. His face dropped. That's not even my handwriting, he muttered. I checked our insurance records. Multiple appointments had been booked under Michael's name, without his knowledge. Harold was trying to force medical decisions from a distance. I grabbed my keys. I wasn't about to let this slide. I showed up at the specialist's office with a printed copy of the fake referrals and stormed up to the receptionist. My husband never booked this appointment, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I need to know who authorized this. She looked at the paperwork, then back at me, clearly confused. It was referred by Harold. Of course it was. He's not authorized to make medical decisions, I said. This is fraud. Her eyes widened. Oh! We didn't know. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the email from our lawyer. He lost power of attorney weeks ago. Legally, he has no right to do this. She nodded quickly. I'll talk to the doctor. Give me a moment. She disappeared into the back. When she returned, she looked uneasy. The appointment has been canceled, she said. And I'll make sure nothing gets scheduled under his name again. But your father-in-law called this morning. He said he would be attending the appointment with Michael. My hands clenched into fists. Harold was still trying to insert himself into Michael's care. I looked at the receptionist. If he ever calls again, tell him this. I know what he's doing. And I'm not letting it happen. She nodded. Understood. But something told me Harold wasn't going to let this go. The next problem came weeks later. We got a letter in the mail. It was from our insurance company. Due to recent updates to your policy, your emergency contact and secondary decision maker have been changed. I froze. Michael read over my shoulder. What the hell does that mean? I turned the page. Harold's name was listed as the secondary decision maker. I saw red. Michael immediately called our insurance provider. I never approved this, he told them. Who made these changes? The representative hesitated. We received a request from your father. Michael and I looked at each other. How? I asked. He has no legal authority over this. The rep sighed. It was processed before the power of attorney was revoked. But I can change it back. Michael didn't hesitate. Do it. We spent the next hour going through every single document to make sure Harold's name was removed from everything. By the time we finished, I was seething. I had no idea how Harold managed to sneak this past us. But now I knew he wasn't going to stop. He had lost control. And he was desperate to get it back. Michael and I agreed. No more playing defense. We called a lawyer and made sure every legal safeguard was in place. We even changed our locks because at this point, I wouldn't put anything past Harold. Then, one evening, he showed up at our house. It was late. Too late for a casual visit. Michael and I were watching TV when the doorbell rang. Michael frowned. Are we expecting anyone? No, I said. I checked the doorbell camera. And there he was. Harold. Standing on our porch. Hands in his pockets. Just waiting. I didn't open the door. What do you want? He smiled at the camera. We need to talk, he said. Let me in. No, I said immediately. His smile didn't fade. I'll wait. And he did. For 2 hours. He just stood there. In the dark. Waiting. Michael was getting anxious. Should we call the police? I don't want to escalate things, I said. Not yet. We watched him through the camera. He wasn't leaving. Just standing completely still, staring at the door. At some point, he pulled out his phone and started dialing. Michael's phone rang. He ignored it. Then mine rang. Then the house phone. He just kept calling. Over and over. Finally, he gave up. We watched as he turned around and walked away. But I knew this wasn't over. Harold wasn't just angry. He was obsessed. A few days later, I got a knock at the door. Two police officers stood outside. "Ma'am, we received a welfare check request for Michael. Is he home?" My stomach dropped. Michael stepped into view. "I'm right here." The officer nodded. "Your father called us. He said he hasn't been able to reach you. He's concerned for your safety." I laughed. Loudly. Michael looked furious. "We're fine." "He's lying." The officers exchanged a look. "Mind if we come in?" "Just to confirm." Michael and I both knew refusing would only make this worse. So we let them in. They looked around. No signs of distress. No reason for concern. One of them sighed. "Sorry about this. False reports happen." We knew exactly what this was. Harold was trying to weaponize the police against us. And the worst part? It worked. Now, he knew he could get people to show up at our door whenever he wanted. Michael ran a hand through his hair. "This isn't going to stop, is it?" I exhaled slowly. "No," I said. "But we're going to end it." Harold had already crossed so many lines, but every time we thought we had blocked him out, he found a new way to push back in. He wasn't just trying to control Michael's medical care anymore. He was trying to control our entire lives. And I had a feeling things were about to get even worse. One night, we were fast asleep when we woke up to pounding on the front door. It was 1:30 a.m. Michael shot up, groggy and confused. "What the hell?" I checked the doorbell camera. 3 police officers. Flashing lights. My stomach clenched. I answered the intercom. "Can I help you?" "Ma'am, we received a 911 call from this address." The caller reported an ongoing domestic disturbance. My blood ran cold. "There is no emergency here," I said firmly. "We didn't call 911. The officer's face stayed neutral, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. "Ma'am, we need to confirm that everyone inside is safe." Michael and I exchanged looks. We let them in. One officer spoke to me in the kitchen while the other took Michael aside. "Do you feel safe in your home?" he asked me. I clenched my jaw. Yes, there was number 911 call. This was a false report. The officer nodded slowly. "Do you have any idea who might have made the call?" I didn't hesitate. "Harold." His eyes flickered with recognition. This wasn't the first time he had heard that name. After a few more questions, the officers confirmed there was no emergency and left. But the message was clear. Harold had weaponized 911 against us. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was dangerous. Michael worked for a private law firm, and up until now, Harold had mostly left his job alone. That changed 3 days after the fake 911 call. Michael walked into his office that morning and immediately knew something was off. People were staring. His boss looked tense. Then, the HR manager called him in. Michael sat down, confused. "What's going on?" She folded her hands on the desk. "We received an anonymous email claiming that you have been using illegal substances at work." Michael froze. "What?" She slid a printed copy of the email across the desk. It was filled with lies. It accused Michael of showing up to work intoxicated. It claimed he had been caught with pills in his office. It even suggested that his erratic behavior might be due to a mental health breakdown. Michael's hands shook with rage. This is a lie. His boss believed him, but HR had no choice. They had to do an internal review. Michael came home that night furious. "I know who did this." I already knew. Harold had tried to ruin Michael's career. I grabbed my phone. "We need to end this. Right now." The next morning, we went straight to our lawyer. "We need a restraining order," I said. The lawyer nodded. "Given the police reports, the fraudulent medical claims, and now this workplace attack, you have a strong case." We filed immediately. It would take a few days to process, but I felt relief just knowing that we were finally taking legal action. But then, Harold struck again. 2 days later, we got a letter in the mail. From Harold's lawyer. Michael opened it, read 3 lines, and turned pale. "What?" I asked, my stomach twisting. He handed me the letter. Harold was suing us. For elder abuse. I had to reread it twice to believe what I was seeing. He was claiming that we had been financially exploiting him, neglecting him, and emotionally abusing him by cutting off contact. He even had witnesses lined up, his new wife, who he had barely mentioned before, and a few distant relatives we hadn't seen in years. Michael ran a hand through his hair, looking sick. He's trying to flip the narrative. I sat down hard on the couch. He wants to put us on defense. If this goes to court, he could drag this out for months. Michael buried his face in his hands. He's going to make us look like the bad guys. I wasn't going to let that happen. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. By the time we walked into the courtroom, I had every piece of evidence ready. The forged power of attorney? Printed and highlighted. The fake medical appointments? Documented. The insurance fraud? Filed with timestamps. The police reports? Submitted into evidence. Harold sat across from us, smug. He truly thought he was about to win. Then our lawyer stood up and ripped his entire case apart. You claim you were being financially exploited? Our lawyer asked. Can you explain why you were the one committing insurance fraud? Harold's face twitched. You claim you were emotionally abused. Yet you called the police on them under false pretenses, attempted to sabotage your son's job, and even committed medical fraud. Harold's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Then we pulled out the police body cam footage from the fake 911 call. The judge watched it in silence. Harold's jaw clenched. Then our lawyer delivered the final blow. We are countersuing for harassment, defamation, and fraud. Harold's face went ghost white. The courtroom went silent. I could almost hear his world crumbling. This wasn't just about a restraining order anymore. This was about taking him down for good. And the best part? We were just getting started. Harold thought he had everything under control. He had been playing his game for years, manipulating Michael, pushing boundaries, forcing his way into decisions that weren't his. But this time, he overplayed his hand. He thought filing a lawsuit against us would scare us into backing down. He didn't realize we weren't afraid of him anymore. And in the end, his own arrogance was his downfall. We knew Harold's case was weak, but we still prepared for war. By the time the next hearing arrived, our lawyer had built a bulletproof counter case. Harold had forged a power of attorney. He had fraudulently scheduled medical appointments. He had tried to control our insurance. He had used 911 as a weapon against us. He had tried to sabotage Michael's job. And now? He was claiming we had abused him, all while he was the one terrorizing us. The courtroom was packed. Harold had actually brought an audience. His new wife, a few distant relatives, even a couple of his old friends. He wanted a spectacle. Too bad he was about to become the main attraction. Harold's lawyer went first. He stood up, cleared his throat, and delivered the most ridiculous speech I had ever heard. Your Honor, my client is a loving father who has been unfairly cut off from his son's life. He has been a victim of emotional neglect and manipulation by his daughter-in-law. I laughed loudly. The judge shot me a warning look, but I didn't care. Michael reached over and squeezed my hand. He looked calm, but I could feel his tension. This was his moment. When it was our turn, our lawyer didn't hold back. Your Honor, my clients have been harassed, stalked, and manipulated by the plaintiff. I would like to present irrefutable evidence that this lawsuit is nothing more than a desperate attempt to maintain control. Then he dropped a stack of papers on the table. Copies of the fake power of attorney. Emails proving Harold had booked medical appointments under Michael's name. Insurance records showing he had illegally changed Michael's emergency contacts. The 911 transcript from the fake domestic violence call. The HR report proving he had attempted to destroy Michael's career. Harold's lawyer blanched. The judge flipped through the documents silently. Then our lawyer spoke again. I'd also like to present a witness. The doors opened, and in walked the last person Harold expected to see. Harold's new wife stepped forward. Her face was tight. Her hands were clasped together. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The second Harold saw her, he stiffened. She didn't sit next to him. She sat next to us. The courtroom buzzed. Even I was caught off guard. Then she spoke. I have something to say, she said, voice shaking. She turned to the judge. I can confirm that Harold forged the power of attorney. Harold's head snapped toward her. What are you doing? He hissed. She ignored him. I saw him do it, she said, eyes glassy. He practiced Michael's signature. He told me it was the only way to make sure he had control. He said Michael wasn't capable of making his own medical decisions, so he had to force his hand. Michael exhaled sharply. Harold's lawyer looked horrified. The judge leaned forward. Are you saying you were aware of fraudulent activity? She swallowed. Yes. Harold slammed his fist on the table. You traitor. The judge banged his gavel. Control yourself, Mr. Patterson. I could feel the tension crackling in the air. Harold turned to his wife, face red with rage. You knew this would happen if you crossed me. She flinched. Michael stood up, voice steady. You've controlled people your whole life, Dad. But not anymore. Harold's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, he looked genuinely afraid. His entire world was falling apart. And he had nowhere to run. The judge ruled in our favor. Harold's lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning he couldn't file again. We won our counter-lawsuit for harassment and fraud. The forged power of attorney? Officially documented as evidence of fraud. Harold was hit with legal fees, a permanent restraining order, and potential criminal charges for forgery. But the biggest punishment? His entire family saw him for who he really was. His new wife filed for divorce within a month. His friends cut ties after learning what he had done. Michael's distant relatives? They apologized to us for believing him. Harold lost everything. And for the first time in his life, he had no control over anything. A few months later, Michael and I sat on our porch, drinking coffee. He looked lighter, like a weight had been lifted. I reached for his hand. "You okay?" He nodded. "I am now." I squeezed his fingers. After everything we had been through, we finally had peace. Harold had spent his entire life bullying and manipulating people. But in the end, his own actions destroyed him. And the best part? We never had to sink to his level. We just let him dig his own grave. And now, we were finally free.